Hey guys, my name is Haley, and today I'm here to finally film my book review / discussion for Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I'm going to start this off by saying I know that this script has a lot of controversy and it has caused quite the stir of differentiating opinions, but I personally loved this script. I thought it was a wonderful dive back into the Harry Potter universe, and as you can see, I have a lot to say. As you probably know, it's written in script format, so it's a very fast read, and it's also a really fast-paced plot. And honestly, my first immediate thought while I was reading it was, if any of you have ever seen a Harry Potter musical, the Star Kid production, or any of the Harry Potter musicals that they've done 3 of them, did anybody else giggle at the certain plot point aspect that was referenced that is kind of a huge plot point of one of their musicals? Because if so, please comment down below, because I thought it was hilarious. I'm not going to mention what it is because I want to try to keep the first half of this non-spoilery, so we'll see how that goes. So I'm going to start off with discussion points about the script itself, like it being a script. First off, I hate that this is marketed as the 8th Harry Potter story. It bothers me so much because it's not. If anything, it's a reimagined next generation thing that just so happens to involve a lot of the original characters from the main story of the 7 books of Harry Potter. We do follow Harry a lot in this, but it's not focused on him at all. It's focused on his son, Albus Severus. Another huge issue I've been seeing from people that have bash this book into the ground is that it's a script. And I know there are a lot of people out there that have never read a script before, so that's probably a lot of it. I have read a couple of them. Back in high school I had to read a bunch, and I'm a theater person, so I'm used to reading like things in a script format. And I know there's a lot of people that keep pointing out that this script was written by Jack Thorne, which is true. It was written by him with like input from John Tiffany and J.K. Rowling, but I feel like so many people have bashed the fact that it doesn't sound like the characters don't sound the same as they do in the original Harry Potter, which I don't think is completely true. Like, you can definitely still hear a lot of J.K. Rowling's humor and stuff in like Ron or Harry or Hermione. Like, I never thought there was a point where they were like incredibly out of character or anything like that. People that knew it was a script, understood it was a script, accepted that that's what it was. You can read the script, or in the case of a musical, you can listen to the soundtrack and think you know the storyline really well and then go see it and it be a completely different thing. See, in my case, I've listened to the Wicked soundtrack since I was 12 years old, back in 7th grade when I first found out about it. And I just went and saw the show for the first time this past Saturday, like actually saw it live. And there's such a difference between just listening to a soundtrack or just reading a script than there is actually seeing it. And that's just the case with theater. That's why live theater exists, because it's something so different. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I feel like there's no other art form that is exactly like that. So in the case of people complaining about it being a script, I'm just like people are judging it too much as a book. And I think more people need to be judging it as this would be so incredibly different seeing live. And I hope to have the chance one day to finally go see it live at some point. I know it's coming to New York, it's in the works to bring it to Broadway, and you know that I'm gonna try as hard as I can to get there to go see it because it's Harry Potter. Another thing people are saying a lot about is that the time travel has different rules from the time travel that we learned about in Prisoner of Azkaban, which is true, but I also think of it in the context of being a play script. In the movies, you have the ability to use CGI to have doubles of the actors so that we can see the way the time travel worked that way in Prisoner of Azkaban. On a stage, that's much more difficult because we have to adhere to the logic of real life because it's live theater. So I don't understand how people are so annoyed with the fact that the time travel is different in that way, because there's nothing we can do about it. It's just physically impossible to have doubles of every actor. So I do understand why the time travel was changed in that way. Another non-spoilery thing that I'm going to say before I get into more discussion on the plot itself is that I loved Scorpius. so much, just like everybody else. Even people that like hated this script loved Scorpius, and that was their saving grace, which I understand because he was so funny. He was such a precious little character, and I loved that we got to see so much of him in this. Okay. Not spoilery, people. That's all I have to say for not giving away anything. So if you have not read this, please leave now because I'm going to get into more spoilery bits because I have some feelings. So number one, I want to address the fact that people think Amos Diggory was acting incredibly out of character. In my opinion, I don't think he was that out of character. Like, even in Goblet of Fire, whenever he was with Cedric around Harry, he was always, like, goading Harry about how Cedric was better than him, or that Cedric had beat him in that Quidditch match when Harry fainted from the Dementor. He paraded around anything that had to do with Cedric beating Harry at something. So he was already a really, like, and I know he was being a proud father, and, like, he was just trying to help his son out, but even Cedric was embarrassed by it and that. So I didn't think it was super out of character for him to be talking about how he really wanted his son back. And it is addressed once we figure out the big plot twist of who Delphi is, that she's had him under the Confundus charm. So I don't know why people are so annoyed with Amos's actions in this, because obviously he was being confunded by Delphi so that everyone thinks she was his niece and all that. Another thing I really liked was I really enjoyed that Albus was put straight into Slytherin right off the bat. Like, it's one of the first things we learn through all the time skips before we get to the main plot of the story. And I don't know why, sorry, I have my notes sitting over here. But I just thought it was so prevalent that the thing that had been mentioned in the end of Deathly Hallows in the epilogue was that he didn't feel comfortable being put in Slytherin, but Harry even tells him, like, one of the men that you're named after was a Slytherin, and he was the bravest man I ever knew. And I know a lot of people get annoyed with that he named Albus Severus after Snape. I'm not going to get into that. I just think the fact that he doesn't discriminate against Slytherins, I mean, he does a little bit because that was ingrained in his brain while he was at Hogwarts. But the fact that he was okay with his sons being in Slytherin, but his son took it the wrong way, made me just feel for Harry that he accepted that that's just where his son was supposed to be, and that's where he made his best friend and all of that kind of thing. I really loved in the time travel scenes being able to see, like, other people's perspectives on the Triwizard Tournament. Like, Ludo Bagman was, like, always present in those time periods of trying to get cheers from, like, Beauxbatons and all of the other schools and stuff, and I just thought it was so funny because I really like Ludo Bagman, even though he was kind of a weird character. Sorry, this is probably all over the place. I'm trying, guys. I'm not good at these book review things. I've never done it before. Don't judge me. But there was a quote in there that I really liked, and I believe Delphi was the one that said it, and it was when Harry warned Albus against being friends with Scorpius in one of the alternate timelines. And the quote was, "That's the thing, isn't it, about friendships? You don't know what he needs, only that he needs it." And I just thought that it was just such a true quote in concerning friendship. Like, that's how you feel about your best friend. You don't know what they need, just know they need something, and that just happens a lot in real life. So I just thought that was a very touching quote. I want to mention during the scene when, I think it's the second alternate timeline after using the time turner, when I read the name Dolores Umbridge, I literally, like, exclaimed out loud, "You've got to be kidding me," because they would definitely just milk for all they could get putting that character in this book because everybody hates her so much. And I just thought that entire world was crazy, like with Umbridge and the Voldemort Day thing and just how the world has gone to evil and all of that. I just thought it was a very interesting world to see what would have happened and the reasons that it became that way, because Harry died and Neville was killed, so they never finished off the Horcruxes. I just thought it was a very good insight into what could have happened. Like everyone else, I loved the scenes with Snape and Ron and Hermione in the alternate timeline as well. Snape especially, like, that was the point in the book where I started crying, was all the scenes with Snape in there, because Snape has always been one of my favorite characters. I know he was a horribly flawed person. And really, I just love that whole alternate timeline, if we're being honest. Like, I love the little scene we have with Cedric where one of them goes, "Cedric, you know your father loves you so much." And I was just like, ugh. It was so sad. All the flashback scenes of, like, what actually happened with Hagrid finding baby Harry and, like, Harry watching his parents' deaths were just so heart-wrenching to watch. And I can't even imagine seeing the actors act that out on stage in real life, like watching that in a theater. I would be a mess. And I was a mess just reading it in this script, and it was just all the Harry Potter feels. I also really like that Harry got the opportunity to tell Dumbledore, even though it was just his portrait, he got the opportunity to tell Dumbledore how used he felt and, like, why he couldn't have made it easier for him to find the Horcruxes and all that. I liked that they had that conversation. I thought it was really important for Harry and, like, him getting over it and all the anger that he's been having with his son. Speaking of his son, I know a lot of people are saying that Harry was, like, a bad parent throughout this, and sure, he made mistakes, but I thought Albus was just a really horrible son for, like, the whole beginning of this book. Like, I was so frustrated with him and the way that he literally mocked Harry for his childhood and the abuse that he went through with the Dursleys and all that, and I was like, you can't say that to, like, your parents. And I know he was, like, a child, but I thought he was much worse of a son than Harry was as a father. Another one of the big issues that people have mentioned was Bellatrix and Delphi and Voldemort. And the biggest thing is people don't understand how there was a period of time where Bellatrix could have been pregnant, and it says that Delphi was born before the Battle of Hogwarts. So that leaves a weird little window of time where Bellatrix had to have been pregnant with Delphi. And, like, I know it's a magical world and there's probably a way that you can hide pregnancies, but there's also a period of time where we don't see Bellatrix. Like, we see her at Malfoy Manor, but maybe she was just wearing baggy clothing, that kind of thing. And I don't think that's my favorite plot twist ever, of Delphi actually being Voldemort's daughter, but I can understand why they did it for a play's shock factor. Like, that's not something we're gonna guess. Like, I just think it's a good plot twist for what it is, for what this world was set up to be, so it didn't bother me that much. This is also the first time that I've tabbed, like, color-coded it. Like, I think red was a character or a plot point that I really liked. Yellow was something to do with the time travel. Green was a flashback or a quote from the original series. And blue was stage directions. Speaking of stage directions, the directions they have of the Dementors and, like, the Voldemort voice calling out Harry's name, I can only imagine how terrifying that would be in a theater. Like, the same way they do in Phantom of the Opera. If you've ever seen Phantom live, they have, like, speakers throughout the house all over the place, so that there are points where it sounds like he's traveling around the theater. And that's how I imagine, like, the Dementors and Voldemort's voice would be in this, so you would hear him, like, behind you, and I just think that would be terrifying. So I really hope I get the chance to see this someday, because it would be such an experience. I hope that was coherent. I've been talking for 25 minutes and my voice is screaming at me, so I think I'm gonna wrap this up. Overall, I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. It might be a 4.75 stars, but I think my enjoyment level was much higher than most people that read this, and I just thought it was a great dip back into the world of Harry Potter, and I appreciate it for what it is. I hope that made sense. I hope it was a coherent enough review, and thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys next time.